Hi, I'm Beth from So Country, and today's tutorial is for the pack pouch from K.Azcona Designs. Now mine might not look much like a Pac-Man, but the one I'll be sewing up in today's video will definitely look like one. Because for today's, I'm using all of this adorable Pac-Man fabric from my little shindig. Now I'm going to have the link for where you can get this fabric. It is available right now for retail. If she runs out of the retail, she will do. You can get it on a pre-order. But this is what I will be using for my version today. This pouch comes together really quick, and it's unique in the way it comes together. Sewing up this pattern is what reminds me once again that I will never be a pattern designer, because I couldn't have came up with all the different ways she puts this together to get this cute little pouch in the end. We have one zipper, and it's right here, and it's kind of like a hidden zipper so it doesn't take away from the design. But you can see it opens up. A phone will fit in there. You know, one of your smaller wallets will fit in there. It does have your wristlet strap right here on the side. And the way it's going to look is that this contrast will make the shape for the Pac-Man mouth. So let's go ahead and start talking about all the materials that I'm using today in my video. I'm going to break these down by my exterior pieces and my lining pieces. So let's go with our exterior pieces first. I'm using all cotton woven, and I have everything interfaced with a medium weight interfacing. What I use is Royal Pixie Light, but you can use a SF101 or whatever equivalent you have on hand. So our pattern piece A is going to be for the back. It's going to be this shape. We're also going to have a lining piece that's exactly the shape that we'll talk about in just a minute. So A. Then we have our pattern piece B. This is the front top. With this pattern, the marks that she puts on the pattern pieces are really important to transfer over to your pattern pieces. Because this is a circle, things can get a little confusing at times as to what piece goes where. So transfer all markings over. For example, on the back of your piece B, you're going to have two marks at the top, and then you're also going to have what she calls a fold line. Go ahead and draw that line and your other marks, and then that gets this piece prepped for whenever we are ready to sew it. So then we have our C, the front bottom. Let me show you where that will go, just so you can kind of have some clarity. This is your front top, your B. This is your A. This is going to be your C down here, your front bottom. And then you'll have a contrast piece, which is your D, the front right. We also have this piece E, the zipper bottom, and you can see it. Let me put this right here. You can see it right here at the bottom, but not much. But you, just so you know, that will be shown. And so I think what the best way to do it is to have everything the same color and then one contrast. But you may have other ideas, and so do whatever works best for you. That's your exterior pieces. For the lining pieces, we just have three. We have that same A piece, that is the full circle. And then we also have a G and an F. The F is the top and the G is the bottom. So those will be inside. The other pieces we will need is we will need 4 zipper tabs. These pieces are the only pieces that I do not interface, so I don't put anything on them. So 4 of those, 2 exterior, 2 lining. I'm going to have one piece L, that is your D-ring connector. Also, if you wanted to, you could always just have it connect to your zipper pull, but I will be adding the D-ring connector in on this one. Last piece you will need to cut out is your wristlet strap. Since I'm using a cotton woven, I already have, like I said, everything interfaced with the medium weight interfacing, but also the pattern gives us separate pattern pieces for our fleece. You will have 3 pieces to cut out. This piece will be for your back, and these pieces will be for your front. We are not going to interface anything just yet with the fleece. We're going to hold on to this, and then I will tell you at what point we'll interface all the pieces together. If you were using vinyl, you would not use any fleece. If you're someone that does not like to use fleece, you could definitely go without it. You can see how it kind of gives that stability. and that little bit of dimension. So you could definitely keep fleece out of this if you don't have it or don't like the feel of it. You could try Decaville Light also to keep that out of the seam allowance and see how that goes too. But this is the version that I'll be doing. I'm going to go exactly with what the pattern suggests and recommends, and we will get started sewing all this up. As far as hardware goes for this pouch, it's kept very minimal. You'll need a zipper with your zipper pull, but as you can see, you don't really see your zipper until you open it up to get in there, so it's not as big of a deal what color your zipper is. Of course, I'm trying to match it, but it's not going to be perfect, so it's okay. And then the zipper pull, depending on what kind you use, most of them will hang down, and you will see that a little bit. The other things, so I have my zipper and zipper pull. The other things I'll need is, of course, the hardware for the wristlet strap, so D-ring and a swivel hook. So the first things we're going to do to get started with this pouch is we're going to take our D-ring connector and our wristlet strap, and we're going to draw a line down the middle of both. Then I'm going to take these over to my ironing board, and then I'm just going to press the raw edges both to that middle line. After I get those pressed down, then I will just fold it again and press it again to make my D-ring connector. So let me go ahead and do this, and then we will come back and go ahead and make this wristlet strap. So now I have my D-ring connector and my wristlet strap both ironed and clipped. So now what I want to do is I'm just going to top stitch down the sides of the D-ring connector. But for the wristlet, before I do anything with it, I'm going to open up these edges. I will put on my swivel hook first. Just slide it down there. And I want it to be in the inside. If it shifts, it's okay. I can turn it, but that's what I want at the end. So we'll open it up, take the short edges and place them right sides together. Let's put a clip or two in there. And then what I'll do is I will sew across these with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Now I'm going to say something. I'm probably going to use white thread in this pattern. I don't know if you're aware or not, but black thread is really hard to sew with because of the dye process on the thread. It just doesn't always work perfectly. So I do avoid sewing with black thread unless I really have to. So I'm going to be sewing with white, so my stitches, you might not like the way that contrast looks, but just wanted to point that out to you. So let's sew these two pieces. So after I have my D-ring connector sewn, I will just slip on this D-ring, and I'll go ahead and fold it. I did interface this piece completely. The pattern tells you to just interface half, and it is better. I just went ahead and put all of it on there. So keep that in mind, that yours will be less thick than mine if you only interface half of yours. So what I'll do is I'll take this back to the machine and just baste that edge closed. And then for this strap, what I'll do is I'll open up that seam and refold the way it was, clipping everything back together. And you can see that that seam is tucked in there, so no raw edges, no risk of fraying. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to top stitch down both long edges, and I'll be sewing in a circle. When you get to your D-ring, just slide it out of the way. Now that I have these two pieces sewn together, my D-ring connector I can just set aside, but with my wristlet strap, what I want to do is I want to flip it so that the swivel hook is on the outside. I'm going to take it right to that crease where the seam is. So here's my seam, and I'm just going to make a little crease. And now what I'll do is I will just top stitch right here to secure it right where that seam is. You can put a rivet in here if you want, but your wristlet strap is now done. So we'll set it aside to the end as well. So now what we're going to do is work on the front of our pouch. Pull out your C, your front bottom, and your D, your front right. So we know, let's see, which way do I want? Yeah. Your pattern pieces have marks on them. Those marks for these two pieces show where they should be lined up. So you can orientate them too to know that it's going to go this way, but use those marks to line them up. We just place them right sides together. Get my marks perfectly lined up. Everything should line up beautifully. And then I'm just going to sew along the edge where you made your marks using the seam allowance given in the pattern. So I'll sew from one end to the other. And I'll make sure I back stitch on both sides of that. So you can see I have those two pieces sewn together and it matches up pretty perfectly there. She's great at designing that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this open, but I'm also going to take the time to press the seam open. You can definitely, I suggest going to the ironing board for this part, but since I'm on video I'm not going to, but I suggest you do that. Because it'll be a little tricky. I will take this over the ironing board after I top stitch it, but it would be easier if I did it before. But what I'm going to do now is she tells you that you're going to top stitch on the left of that seam. So we're not top stitching on the contrast piece, but on the exterior piece. So I'm going to take that over and just top stitch down that seam. So I got my top stitching there. If you flip over the back, you can see that one of the seam is butterflied and one seam is top stitched down. So I took this over to the ironing board and pressed it down. And now the next thing we need to do is we need to take this zipper bottom E and place it on top of here. If your print's directional, make for sure you orientate it the way you want before you attach it. Make sure you have your center markings and you match up everything well, but you can see it's going to fit really nicely on there, so you should be able to place it okay. But since my print is directional, I'm going to have it this way and then just flip it down and attach it with the seam allowance given in the pattern. So now that we have that attached, we're going to flip it over and just open these seams. Definitely take this part over to the ironing board. I will as soon as I finish up top stitching and make sure I have it all opened properly. So this is butterflying our seams, getting them open, and then what we'll do is we're going to top stitch on this zipper, the zipper bottom piece, but we're going to top stitch on the bottom of it. So not down here, but on our zipper bottom, your piece E. So I'm going to top stitch across that. Make sure you have your seams butterflied so that you attach that one seam to the piece E. Now that I have this portion sewn, I'm going to go ahead and pull out my fleece. I had 3 pieces of fleece. I'm going to attach one piece of fleece to this bottom part, one piece of fleece to the top, that is your piece B, and then one piece of fleece to piece A. So I'm going to take these over the ironing board and get them attached. So I added fleece to those 3 pieces. I'm going to pull the top and the back and put them aside, and we're going to start working on our zipper pocket now. So we're going to keep this piece out that we've just been working on. We'll pull out G, the front bottom lining, and then we'll also get our zipper and the zipper tabs. So first thing we do is we prep our zipper by putting the zipper tabs, just like we would any normal zipper. We do an exterior piece. All of mine look the same, but you'll have one exterior piece, and the exterior piece is right sides together with your zipper tape. Then you will take a lining piece and you will put it right sides together with the tab, but the right side will be up to the wrong side of the zipper. So it makes a zipper sandwich. I will clip these in place, and then I will do the same thing for my other zipper tabs in the other side, and then I'm going to sew these together right against that short edge with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Make sure you backstitch when you start and stop sewing on your tabs so they are secure. But after we're done, now what we'll do is we'll just pull them we'll just pull them wrong sides together. And then we will top stitch on the tab, right 1/8 of an inch away from the folded edge. Now that I have my zipper tabs in place, it is time to attach this to the bottom piece we've been working on. I want my zipper to close to the left, so that's the way I'm going to orientate this. Of course, you can do yours either way. So I have it closing the left. I just flip it down. I make sure I'm matching up my center marks to make sure everything's even, and then I'm just going to clip in place against this long edge. Once I get it clipped in place and centered perfectly, I'm just going to top stitch from one edge to the other using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Now that I have this zipper attached to the exterior, I'm going to take my lining piece, and again I'm going to match up the centers. I'm going to place it right sides together and clip in place, making sure my sides and my tops align. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew all of these pieces together from end to end using the seam allowance given in the pattern. Okay, now that I have this zipper sandwich completed, what I'll do is I will flip this over and push these wrong sides together. I'm going to add a few clips to hold it in place. You can take this over to the ironing board if you want. I'm just going to finger press that seam down, flatten it out, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch right along the seam I just sewed. I'm going to top stitch along that with 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to go from edge to edge. So we now have our bottom portion done on the front, and we have our lining attached to the back. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pull out our piece B, which is our front top that has the fleece on the back, and our piece F, which is our lining for the top. We have that line that we're going to transfer from the pattern piece to our fabric. This is going to be the fold line, like it says. What I like to do is I usually like to take something kind of firm to kind of help me keep it straight. And then I'm just going to fold this piece wrong sides together back onto itself. You can take this over to the ironing board and press it flat. I'm just going to put a few clips here to hold it down. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch along that crease. Now that I have that top stitch, what I'll do is I'll pull out this lining bottom, and I'm going to flip this up. This edge that is raw is what we will use to attach to this other unsewn part of the zipper. We're definitely going to match up our centers. This is where it gets a little bit more important to have those center markings to make sure you get everything attached. But this edge attaches to your zipper. So let's look at this. This is my piece B. There's the top stitched edge I just made. Here's my zipper and the bottom. There is the back. So we're going to sew the zipper to the piece B and with the seam allowance given in the pattern. Now that I got the piece B sewn to the zipper, I'm going to take my piece F and attach it the same way. You match up your centers and you clip along the edges, and you're just going to sew the same, use the seam allowance in the pattern and sew that same edge. I'm going to sew from this side and so I can follow my stitches exactly from the previous step. Now that I have that zipper sandwich sewn, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flip up the lining part. I'm leaving the exterior piece B folded down, and I'm going to top stitch. We're not top stitching with that because the stitches would show and we don't want that to detract from the look of the pouch. So just your lining, your seam allowance will be going up, so when you top stitch you'll be catching that seam allowance and actually attaching it to your piece F. Now we got that, let's go ahead and press our other exterior up. And let's take a look, and you can see our little Pac-Man mouth is coming out. We can see it looks a lot more like a pack pouch using this fabric than using just a regular fabric. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to trim up my zipper tabs now that I have everything finished with that. I'm going to go ahead and just open that zipper a little bit so I don't forget it later, and then we will go on to our next steps. Okay, so I trimmed up my zipper edge and my zipper ends and got that out of the way, and so now I'm going to attach my D-ring. The pattern tells you exactly where, but you measure from this part right here, and then that tells you where to put your D-ring. So let's go ahead and baste that in place. And now we only have this piece and two other pieces left. So I'm going to take my exterior piece A, and I want to place it right sides together with this front piece. So I'm going to do that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the back because I don't want to clip any of my lining while sewing this. We are going to sew these separately. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of put a clip right here at the top of my lining pieces to hold them out of the way so I can see clearly what I'm doing. And now I'm just going to clip around the perimeter of these two pieces. So now I have my exteriors clipped together, the linings out of the way. The way we're going to sew this is that we're sewing each piece individually. So we want to go up to these zipper pieces, but we don't want to go over our zipper tabs. So we're going to start sewing right here, back stitch, and then we're going to go up as far as we can without going over that spot because we need to be able to attach the lining and keep them separate. So that's why we're not going over that point. So we're going to sew right up to it. We'll back stitch here and break our stitches. Then we'll come over this way and do the same thing. Start sewing here in the middle, and she does show this in the pattern and give you marks and everything, so it does make it easy. Even if I'm not explaining it perfectly, she does a great job. So you'll start stitching here, back stitch, go up to this point, back stitch as well, and break your stitches. Then what we can do is we can flip it over and then do the same thing on the other sides. The reason why we flip it over is because our needle can get really close on this side, but it'll be a little harder for it to get on this side. So when we flip it over, we can get closer without going over those seams. I know it might sound a little confusing, but it's really not. So let's go ahead and start sewing the exterior pieces together using that two-part method. Two on this side, flip, do the two on the other side. So right here you can see I'm going to go right up into that lining, but I'm going to make sure I don't sew over any part of the lining, but I'm going to get as close as I can to it. Then I'm going to come back to this side and do the same thing. So now I got these two sections sewn, so I'm just going to flip it over, and that way I can sew the other two sections just as easily as I did the first two. I start right there in the middle where I first started stitching the first time. I'm coming up to this. You can see I have that lining pulled back. I will stop right before I get to that lining. My needle won't go over that lining. Now, we've got that exterior attached together. We have the lining completely separate. I'm going to go ahead and unclip the lining portion. I'm making sure my zipper is halfway open. And now I'm going to take that lining panel A, and I'm going to do it the same way. I'm going to put it right sides together with my lining. Then I'll flip it over, and then I'm going to clip it in place with just the lining. So my exterior, I'll put that clip in the top so that exterior is out of the way, and I can get my lining attached as well. And just so you know, if it looks like it's uneven, it just needs to be pulled apart and it'll meet that way. Now I have my lining clipped together the same way I did the first time. Now what I'm going to do though is I'm going to leave an opening, and then I'm also going to, where is it, my D-ring. I'll trim that up a little bit, not all the way, but I'll trim that up as well. After we leave this opening, making sure you leave, have your back stitching here, you're going to sew this the same way. So you'll start here and just go up here, back stitching both edges. Do the same on this side. Flip it over. We don't leave the opening on the top part, so you'll sew from side to side, but just don't go over your exterior. After we do that, we will flip and turn this bag, and then we will be done. Okay, now I have my lining and my exterior both sewn, but before I turn, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my hand in my turning hole, and I'm going to go and push my finger in both the lining opening here on the side and the exterior opening on the side. What I'm feeling for is I'm going to see if I can get my finger through any spots, if I miss any spots, because we do have a little bit of a gap here, and I see I could get a little bit closer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a little bit closer on this side, and she does say that right here you can sew maybe just a half of an inch overall to connect them, so I can do that without any problems to the bag. Let's see if I got any openings on this other side. No, this side I got it close enough, no opening, but this side I just have a little teeny opening, and so I'm just going to go right over and sew over all sides to make sure I have that part closed. So I sewed about a half of an inch there. I'm going to go back in, double check again that I got it tight. Yeah, perfect. So now trimming that D-ring just a little bit. And now it's time to turn the bag. So now I got it turned. Everything looks great. I definitely need to take this over to the iron. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out the lining since I know it's ready and nothing needs corrected. And I'm going to close up my birthing hole, and then I'm going to take this over to the iron and press it flat and get all the wrinkles out. And then we will come back and finish up our pouch. So I went ahead and closed the turning hole, and I also took it over to the iron and pressed everything flat. I attached my wristlet strap, and it looks adorable. So this pattern is called the Pack Pouch. This is from K.Azcona Designs. All my fabric that you saw me use in this tutorial is from My Little Shindig. It is available as retail. If it sells out, she will put it in the pre-order, so you can definitely get this. Also, New Moxie has little Pac-Man and Ghost zipper pulls and webbing if you would want to use theirs. So there's several ways to make this even more fun by using the fabric specifically designed for it. Super cute. I love it. She has other prints besides these. These were just my favorites. So I will have the link for the pattern. I will have a link for the fabric in my description box. And I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you guys have a great day sewing too. Thank you so much for watching.